Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., The Other Thing. And this is going to be my last review of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I do not think it is up to par for anything, really. It's not even bad enough to kind of hate watch and pick apart because it's just there and it's just bland. I really did not like the dialogues and what was going on in this episode, and everyone, it just felt like going through the motions. And granted, we did get some narrative cohesion, but it was just like not well executed at all. But the biggest part that broke the camel's back for me was information that I saw in an article that I will leave a link to in the description below, where we get Melinda May's actress and some producers talking about how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., even with that time skip into 1 year later, is still pre-snap. They were talking about Thanos in New York, and I know there was not a long enough time for Thanos to be going around and getting all of the Infinity Stones and then doing the snap for it to be a year later. They go in the article and talk about how it would pretty much be easier to not deal with the snap whatsoever. So now we can do whatever we want, and it will still be boring. So time travel rules, continuity, who gives a fuck? We can do whatever we want. That's essentially what I got from them going, hey, we're doing pre-snap. So that was pretty much what killed it for me. But actually watching this episode cemented it and like, yeah, this show is just done. So we had three arcs going on. We had Sarge and May. We had Mac doing stuff at the base that involved Yo-Yo and Benson. And then, of course, we had Enoch and Daisy and her cadre dealing with what was going on in outer space. And we got some more information and kind of the big looming threat this season, but it was all just so boring. I felt like going to sleep watching this episode, and I was taking notes. I was actively trying to engage with it, and it's just like, this really just, eh. So what would be the easiest way to kind of go through this? Let's go with Sergeant May stuff first, and then tangentially connect up with Mac's whole thing, and then deal with what was going on in outer space. So we start off, and we see that May's waking up. She had evidently been drugged, and we kind of get this back and forth between May and Sarge, where he's trying to be a bad guy, but we find out in this episode that he kind of isn't. Let's see here. Oh, and all this time, during all this stuff, we get weird, stupid little flashbacks of Coulson and May and Tahiti, and they just really kind of suck. We do get a kind of funny one where Coulson's like, hey, May, you should be a teacher in the academy. That's about it. Otherwise, it's just thrown in there for fluff. So let's see. Well, the snowflake chick says that May's got potential, and then we start kind of going into he's trying to get her turned, and of course he sends Snowflake off to go get something, and they decide to kind of initiate May into their little group because he's missing two people and he needs more people for what's going on. And he tells her to kill him. She's like, fuck that noise. He shoots, Sarge shoots the dude in the head, and then they lock May in the room. And then we actually get a pretty interesting fight scene in here. May's fight scenes are pretty damn badass. And this at least stuck out as a pretty good action scene. Very on par with what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would usually do. And we find out that getting shot in the head with that parasite bird thing in it, you don't die. So we've kind of now got zombie-esque things. Not traditionalist, but we see that it's trying to implant the bird ass thing in her, and she's tactically like taking them down, like breaking body parts, breaking the leg at one point, and getting him to a point that the body's not really usable, and then he starts blowing up, and he had told her to take that knife and stick it under his rib cage, and she does this cool ass thing and kills it, and he's like, oh, okay, you're done. That works out pretty well. And then we kind of get the data dump of what's going on. Evidently, this Coulson has been on many different worlds. He's been alive like hundreds of years before them and says that he'll be alive 100 years after. We get some things about how like one person's dreams, another person's nightmare, and vice versa, pretty much getting into her head about why she wants to kill Sarge. And he says that these things are called Shrike, and that the blade paralyzes them. They go under, and they then do that crystallized structure kind of thing. We see Benson kind of talking about what the blade does to them in between these parts. And I hate the editing for that. I mean, if you're going to stick to something, be there longer than like 5 to 10 minutes. Because they keep flipping back and forth between Sarge explaining it and then Benson kind of explaining the same thing to Yo-Yo. But he brings up the Pachakutik thing, and then it's like a death coming for everyone, and then he's seen it too many times that these creatures have a singular focus, and they serve their creator, who's one person, and he's trying to stop this thing. So, yay! He's trying to help, but it looks like he's trying to use Earth as like bait for it. So May's not going to let that happen. So she does her own cool fight with Coulson in the cabin as he's driving and decides to drive him to the base. At the base with Mac, we really don't get much movement. It's just exposition kind of stuff. We get him and Yo-Yo having one of the most bland conversations that you didn't even feel anything really between them that there should have been. I mean, he's trying to give her comfort for what happened to Redshirt Keller, but I mean, he's Redshirt Keller. You knew what was fucking coming for his ass. And she's blaming it on Benson and all that, and he's like, alright, I'll check that out. He goes and checks it out and starts talking about everything going on with the blades, him also talking to Yo-Yo about it, and that we find out that for some reason the crystalline structure and the blades have similar structures to the monoliths. And I'm like, oh, okay, we should probably look into that. And let's see. Because they bring up like the Incan words. They're like, hey, let's kind of see what's going on here. And they're talking about how they're like space and time, almost really weird analogs to Infinity Stones. And Benson wants to go off and investigate those sites to try and figure out what's going on. Knowing about the ley lines and being worried that the Shrike would go there. They're trying to draw energy from a human body. And what would happen if they actually did that to one of the ley lines? And if they would do that and suck a planet dry, I guess. Again, interesting concepts executed piss poorly. So that's about where we need to get to for the outer space portions, because everything kind of starts culminating together at the end. We see that they're about to go and try and figure out what's going on. Enoch's being kind of mopey, but they get attacked by Ramora's ships. They're getting ready, and they're like, wait a minute. If they were going to destroy us, they would have done that already. And we find out that they're all Chronicons. And one of them is named, let's see, Atora, and it was like, she was the superior to Enoch. And we just get some fucking, well, after we get a data dump, we get some awkward ass lines that evidently they were lovers in like Charging Pod and Data Force. It's like really bad fucking dialogue. But come to find out, the Chronicom's homeworld has been destroyed by kind of what we think is related to the Shrike. And they didn't take it seriously. It was called a Chronica 2. And that all that remains of the Chronicoms are in the Confederacy fleet. Which, by the way, they've completely wiped out and took over all their ships. Not like that would have been fucking cool to see. But the plot demands that this occurs, and they want Fitz and Enoch for tampering with the universe, and they want him to use time travel to fix their homeworld. Makes sense because they've used it to fix Earth. Never mind the fact that it doesn't make any fucking sense anymore. But what do I know? So they pretty much are using Fitz as leverage to try and get information out of Daisy and Gemma, and they're like, we don't know how to make a fucking time machine. And they're like, alright then, kill Fitz. It's like, wait a minute, Fitz can do it, we can all do that, we just need the proper motivation. So Enoch, stupidly fucking enough, because the plot demands that he becomes a dipshit, and say, hey, Fitz can do anything given the proper motivation, like if you all, I don't know, threaten Gemma. And then it goes on to that kind of shit. And Enoch's trying to kind of like figure out what's going on with her, but he's kind of committed to this thing because the plot demands it. And Daisy's like, screw this kind of noise. They try and make their escape. They get to the two, well, they're not on quite level of red shirts, but Piper and the other dude. And they were trying to escape, but they got him out, and they get captured again, but Gemma's like, hey, they just need me, not my friends going on. Fine, okay. There's a lot of dialogue options, like even in an RPG, if you've got Charisma or Intimidate, there's a lot of other different ways that this whole situation could have been resolved, and you did all these action things, and Daisy just, like, force push someone. I mean, I understand budget, but come on, people. So, Gemma heroically decides to give herself up. And the thing is, I say that heroically sarcastically because it felt so fucking selfish for her to do this. She'd run these people ragged, trying to find Fitz. And it's like, oh, okay, no, it's fine. I'll be with Fitz and everything, and you guys can go home and all that. I'm like, you bitch. Like, it completely shot my love for any of these characters, really. I mean, they weren't really doing much with Daisy to begin with in this season. I'm like, well, fine, whatever. I'd been neutral on her. Fitz is just nuts, but the situations he's dealing with are nuts. And Gemma has just been a single-minded piece of crap. And this just cemented it for me. I mean, I understand that it was supposed to be executed in a way that shows that she was heroically giving herself up to save her friends. It felt like she really wasn't doing that at all, and instead was getting what she wanted of staying with Fitz. And like, oh, you guys dropped me off, like an Uber. Never mind that you're almost out of fuel. I hope you get home pretty good. It's like, fuck. But they let them go. We get back to the lighthouse. They're like, oh, hey, we got stuff from Daisy and all that. Oh, that's great. And they get the reunion of Piper and the other dude. We get Daisy and Mac having a nice reunion, and then we get the whole thing of May calling in saying she's got something coming in. God, I didn't like this episode. And then, of course, Enoch pretty much betrays Fitz again. He tells him about everything that was going on with Gemma, and Fitz is rightfully fucking pissed because it's a very Tyrion-like situation where Enoch had the ability to think last season and now is dumb as fucking dirt. Full stop. And he gasses Fitz. And evidently, these guys have some fucking tech that's like the framework, and we're doing that shit all over again, this time with Gemma and Fitz. And they're evidently fighting fucking freaky ass Hydra Fitz, and I'm like, why the fuck is this shit happening? There's no narrative cohesion. We've got no rules anymore, and it's just, if you're not going to have connected to the MCU, you shouldn't have done it. If you are going to have it connected to the MCU, you're going to have to deal with that shit. Otherwise, don't make the show. Because it's just going to get confusing. Or go multiverse. Just be like, This is in another universe where this doesn't have, this has its own kind of shit, where its own internal logic, and its own internal lore, and its own internal rules. Because this is just picking and just choosing whatever the fuck it wants to do. Consequences be damned. The snap is a pivotal moment in Marvel history. Choosing to ignore it and just going off and being like going into the future is just like, there's so much storytelling potential there. How much stuff could have been affected like this? And they're just like, it'd be too hard to kind of deal with that. That's the kind of vibe that I get. And I'm like, that's the challenge that you have to deal with in being in a shared universe like this. If you're not up for it, don't do it. And just how boring it was, this episode. This season has been such a drop of quality. And I do not see it getting better. And since they have already got another season, I don't see it getting better either. Like, they're going to be following this track down for this season and the next season. And I mean, there were issues in season 5 that I started to see shaky ground going on, but just the way it's being acted, the content that's being delivered, I don't feel any tension. I don't feel any interest in the stories or the characters, and that's a death sentence for a TV show. I mean, shit, if it's completely bad, even if it's not self-aware of that badness, you can kind of have a little bit of fun and be like, this is stupid, but it'll at least kind of entertain me. And it's not like it's being done super bad on purpose, like Kung Pao Enter the Fist. Like, I always hate it when this kind of thing happens with shows. It happened with The Walking Dead for me, where they just went a bridge too far, and I'm like, but at least with The Walking Dead, it at least didn't get this bad and this boring. I was just like, I don't like what they're doing, I'm out. And this, I'm just like, it's like, no. This is even like a harder line in the sand for me, so. If you enjoy it, that's cool. I don't want to ruin your enjoyment of this. If you like it, that's cool. I just think that this show deserves better, the fans deserve better, the actors, everybody involved deserves better, and this really needs retooling and rework on the story and the dialogue, definitely. Action, you just need to do it. I mean, May's stuff in this episode was great. So, those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.